Thank you for plugging into this Family Life News podcast, streaming issues-driven, family-focused news.
Welcome back to another edition of Real Answers with Christopher Anderson. Wednesdays during the Noon Report, we tackle the tough topics facing today's families with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. And Chris, we're taking some time today to be thankful and looking at ways of increasing our thankfulness.
Absolutely, and of course, it's that time of year, and I think if you're like me, Thanksgiving is definitely one of your more favorite holidays because of all the eating of great food that goes along with it. And despite this emotional turmoil, Brandon, that we've all just been going through and continue to go through with this ongoing COVID uncertainty, and of course the election that for many didn't go as was hoped, we still have a lot for which to be thankful for.
Yeah, it has been stressful just covering the election as a journalist, but what can people do to incorporate a greater level of thankfulness into their Thanksgiving and Christmas celebrations?
That very question seems to settle on our minds a lot this time of year. And I think partly because we all know deep inside as Christians, we want to be more thankful. God wants us to be more thankful for sure. And I think one technique that I incorporate into my counseling practices is called mindfulness. And this is basically a set of skills that helps to increase your conscious awareness of yourself in the present moment. And I think it's a good idea to consider how to increase your awareness and overall mindfulness as we approach the holidays. And the best place to start, honestly, I think, is to practice a mindful awareness of God's presence with you at any moment in all situations. God is our ultimate reason to be thankful and grateful, and He will also give us the power and the strength to go through difficult times, regardless of any political election outcome. So one thing you can do, again, is to put that smartphone to work and to set a reminder or an alarm to go off at certain times during the day to remind you to just take a couple moments to pray, to maybe quickly read a psalm, to focus your mind on God, and give Him a quick prayer of thankfulness. To go along with this suggestion, too, is just take some time to give some concerted effort and focused thought and list out your blessings that you have in your life in addition to what we have in this nation. So make it an individual effort to look at your own life as well as the freedoms that we still do have in this nation. Make some time to also have very significant and focused conversations with your family members, with dear friends about being thankful. And like I said, pray the Psalms. And I'll tell you what, I probably should have said this off the bat, but honestly, Brandon, this is such a huge way of increasing your awareness of God's presence, His character, and how He blesses us is to look at how the psalm writers have expressed thankfulness themselves. So that's a great way to focus ourselves on, again, being more thankful.
Well, since we're in this tumultuous period of time in our history, Chris, any suggestions on how to reach out to those with whom we disagree during this season?
That's a fantastic and a very timely idea, Brandon. And we ourselves have neighbors on our road with that I don't believe they know the Lord, and they happen to fall on the opposite side of the political aisle. Now, simply reaching out and maintaining communications with them, dropping off baked goods, or even inviting them for a meal is just a great way to be neighborly, intentionally staying in contact with folks in order to show that you care and that you want to get to know them is really a time-tested way of building relationships and building those bridges. But sadly, it's also a tradition that seems to be decreasing with our increased busyness of our society and just the overwhelming nature of what it seems to be to just get through our days here in the society that we're living in. But by the way, that neighbor I was telling you about also loves homemade apple pies, and guess what he's getting for Thanksgiving this year?
I bet it's an apple pie.
You're right. It is. It's going to be fun delivering it to him as well. So,
well, how about sharing Christ with our unsaved loved ones? Any suggestions there?
This is a really good time of the year to do that, especially as Christmas approaches. One thing that I suggest is to write a letter to loved ones, and it can be more of a form letter that, you put inside the Christmas card so you can send it to more than one recipient, but simply share how much their relationship means to you and why it's important that they hear from your heart regarding the gospel. Writing a letter and sharing the gospel is not only personal, but it's also easier than doing it face-to-face. You can always end your letter by saying that you'd love to have a conversation to follow up with them, but that you're going to leave it open to them to initiate that so that they do not feel as they are having it forced on them. So this not only conveys respect, but it also gets the gospel message to them in a way that is genuine, timely, and inviting as well. Like I said, it's Christmas card season anyway, so just include the gospel message along with your Merry Christmas greeting, and of course consider sending it to your elected representatives as well. I mean, there's no reason why we can't include them in sharing the gospel as well. I mean, they need it. as do we all need it, but it's good to include them in the gospel message as well. Share the gospel with our elected representatives.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, Chris.
It really is, Brandon. And, we need to be communicating with our elected officials, even if your choice for political candidates did not win their respective races. I mean, there's a chance that they still don't know Christ.
Any final thoughts?
I would just encourage folks to be mindful in keeping things simple. Now is a great time to sit with your calendar, plan out what you want to decorate, maybe block off some time for spending time with close family and friends, apart from the main holidays, and even consider having kind of like a share the load type Thanksgiving or Christmas meal where everyone chips in and brings a dish to contribute. Then I'll tell you what, also bring empty containers to help carry home the leftovers.
And you can hear more from Chris on the Food Network.
Yeah, I don't think so, Brandon, but I'll tell you what, thanks for the vote of confidence.
You are welcome, my friend, and happy Thanksgiving, Chris.
You too, Brandon, you too.
Thank you. Well, you've been listening to another edition of Real Answers with Christopher Anderson. It airs Wednesdays during the Noon Report. We tackle the tough topics facing today's families with Christian counselor Christopher Anderson.